everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel, you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. So if that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. My guest this week is cancer survivor of adenoid cystic carcinoma, a U.S. women's powerlifter and strength coach, Eileen Brzoska. I will be linking her Instagram TinyLifter7 below for your reference. Hi, Eileen.
Hello, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Did I mess up your last name?
You did. It's Brzoska. Forget that.
Okay, thank you. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Yes, it's a Czech name.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up. So before we begin, would you mind sharing just a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. I live outside of Austin, Texas. I am 46 years old. I got into powerlifting as a way to control my health. So in 2011, I was diagnosed with a rare cancer, adenoid cystic carcinoma, as you mentioned. And this was my way of focusing on something and making myself as healthy as possible in the event that I was given that diagnosis further on down the line.
Okay, so let's talk about your cancer scare, because that's a very important part of today's topic. As you mentioned, it's a very rare cancer. And for the audience, what exactly is it?
Adenoid cystic carcinoma is similar to a squamous cell carcinoma. This is the cancer that your dentist is looking for when you go in for a dental exam, and they press along the salivary glands. They're looking for bumps. This is where it usually occurs. Mine, however, was not in a salivary gland. Mine occurred on my left lower eyelid. It was there for a period of 8 years before being properly diagnosed. And it was extremely rare because this is a cancer that typically is not something that occurs on the skin. It's usually from a glandular origin. And mine being on the skin, they said, well, we really need to find the true location of this cancer. They didn't think it was just a skin cancer. But thankfully, mine turned out to be just a skin cancer. So adenoid cystic is, it's very rare. Squamous cells are more common. And my cancer being in the location that it was, with just being a skin cancer, I was diagnosed as one of 9 patients ever to have that cancer.
Oh my gosh, that's super rare.
Incredibly rare.
Yeah. So what are the causes, and is genetic a factor?
Well, they know exactly which 2 genes cross in order to make this thing called an oncogene, which causes cancer in some people. They don't know what causes those 2 genes to cross.
And so at what age did you get this diagnosis, and what was the prognosis?
So I was diagnosed in 2011. I was 35 years old. My children at the time, I had just had my third son, and they were 5, 3, and 6 months old. And I kept thinking to myself, how is this even possible to have had a cancer the entire time I was pregnant? I had it with all 3 children, and not know feedback from your body to indicate that something was wrong, something seriously wrong. So my first concern was, is this genetic? Do my children have a risk of this? And also, what was their prognosis for their risk of this cancer? So my prognosis for the first 5 years, it's a little bit iffy. You can Google and try to find
Dr. Google
information. Right. So the prognosis, if you Google it, I had about a 50% chance of survival. That doesn't look really good. But being that it was just primary cutaneous origin, I think my prognosis looked a little bit better, but the doctors really, because it's so rare, they just don't know. This cancer is something that is really labeled as indolent, but relentless. That is the specific definition of this cancer. So it is something that can go into remission and then come back with a vengeance 10 to 15 years later.
So what type of treatment were you given in the initial stages?
This is actually kind of a unique situation, because being so rare, there were literally doctors fighting over me to treat me, because they want to do the research, right? You truly, when you become a rare disease patient, you really realize how much medicine is a practice and how much it is really an experimentation. We have a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that are kind of nailed down, and a lot of things that we just don't know. So when you enter that rare disease space, there's a positive in that people really want to work with you. You become the case study. You get to contribute as a patient and advocate for yourself. And that's super important. But there's also that element of fear, right? Because no one knows. You're all just working as humans trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So my treatment ended up being a surgical resection. So they took just about the entire left lower eyelid. So my cancer was on the left lower eyelid. It was about a 6 millimeter cancer. They surgically removed it and then had to reconstruct that eyelid. So that consisted of taking portions of my upper eyelid on the inside, and they literally plastic surgery reconstructed the lower eyelid, sewed it shut for a month, and it revascularized itself. Then I went back in, had some corrective surgery to have the eyelid sit flush against the eye. And then it was time for radiation therapy. So my cancer, when it was surgically resected, they could not find clean margins, which means that they did not get to the end of the cancer. And typically with adenoid cystic carcinoma, this is a cancer that can travel along nerve paths and it can jump from one section to another. So it's very difficult to say, you've got clean margins, we've cured it, you're okay. So the treatment, and I was treated at MD Anderson, the treatment was then proton therapy. This was something that I had to advocate for on my own. It was not something that was offered to me. And I really feel that as a patient, any patient, you really need to go and research your disease, be an advocate for yourself, and don't be afraid to bring those things to the doctors. Just tell them, listen, I've been researching this. I know I'm not a Google certified doctor, but this is what I've discovered. Is this something we can consider? And if not, why not? So I really had to push for that. And then there were also insurance battles regarding that. But I encourage anyone out there, if you're diagnosed with anything, please research your disease and go advocate for yourself to make the best outcome you can.
So you mentioned you had radiation and you wanted the proton therapy. What exactly is that?
So proton therapy is a type of radiation therapy that literally uses protons from hydrogen. And they separate out the protons from the hydrogen atom in an accelerator. And then they take those protons, concentrate them down into the shape of your tumor and literally shoot them into the tumor. It causes a series of reactions that ends up killing the cancer cells within you. It is one of the leading, leading tech treatments. It's been around for a long time, but the benefit of proton therapy is that it delivers the dose of radiation at the depth. So it will spare all the tissues in the front of the tumor, as well as everything in the back of the tumor. So if you have something like I did, even though this was a surface tumor, they suspected that it was lying along the nerve underneath of the eye. So that's why I had the treatment at depth. And it can literally deposit that radiation energy in a certain location without affecting much around it. So it's highly beneficial for people who have brain tumors. The most common things it is used for is childhood cancer, so spinal and brain cancer in children, and then prostate cancer in men.
Okay. Did it affect your eyesight at all?
This was a crazy story. I had literally 15 doctors from the tumor board at MD Anderson in a room at one time. And all of them were looking to see how high I could get my eyes looking up, because they knew that the radiation could affect the macula, could affect the retina. And they weren't sure if I was going to lose any of my eyesight. So again, being the experiment, I had a lot of people looking at me and a lot of people interested in how this was all going to work, because no one knew. The solution for me not losing my eyesight was to literally look up as far as I could. So before the beam of radiation came to me for treatment, the doctor would radio in and he would say, look up as high as you can. And I would just hold it for 30 seconds. I lost 0 eyesight.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yes.
So when you were researching this, and this is so rare, I would imagine that you would want to find somebody else that has gone through this, that, were you able to find anybody, and how?
Yes. So there is a Yahoo group. It's a very old group. It's a very small group because there's not a lot of people. who have been diagnosed with this. And most of the time when people are diagnosed, it's very different. So someone might have it in their liver, someone might have it in their salivary glands. So it's rare to find someone who is close to your diagnosis, even though we all have adenoid cystic carcinoma. We all have our own journeys and our own paths with this. It also varies in aggressiveness, but I did find a group on Yahoo, and it's just a chat group where people go and post different things. The nice thing about a small community is that people are highly engaged, and the responses were quick. So I found this group, literally got on one night and said, hey, this is what I was diagnosed with. I'm looking for second and third opinions just to make sure my treatment is going to go as well as can be. And within 30 minutes, I had 5 responses. There were only, I think, 27 people in this group at the time. I'm sure there's more now. So I had 5 responses for different locations that would take time to review my case. And I have to say, this is one of the benefits of also advocating for yourself and being a rare disease patient. I had Massachusetts General Hospital, as well as Hampton University. I reached out to them. They both called me. I emailed them, and both doctors called me back and said, listen, this is what I need. Put together a health history and we'll review it. So I had doctors calling me who had never met me and willing to review my case file at 9:30 at night on a Saturday. That's the true medicine, you know. Yes. That's the true caring of medicine. So it was just an amazing experience in connecting with others and advocating for yourself. And then having people respond to that too. People really do want to help.
Yes. Thank God for the internet. This is the perfect pro advantage of living in this technology time. But your story is extraordinary because it is not only rare, and I guess we don't really know the causes. And also you were asymptomatic, and, you know, people listening to your story might think they have like a bill of health because they're not showing any symptoms, but what lurks behind in the body, we just don't know.
Absolutely correct. So this was just a 6 millimeter, what looked like almost a sty on my eye. The key for anyone out there who might have this and is worried about it is that that sty didn't go away, number one. And it started to develop vascularity. So it started to develop its own blood supply. You could kind of see some blood vessels in there. And that's when I knew I had to go get it checked. So the journey of this began, you know, it's been 11 years since I've been diagnosed, but it began 16 years ago. My son was just a year old, my first son. And I had this thing that looked like a sty on my eye, and I went to go get it checked out. My optometrist said, you should get this looked at. I don't want to scare you, but there's a possibility this could be something rare and dangerous for you. So the first time I went and I had it removed, the doctor did not biopsy because this is such a rare cancer. And I was 34 at the time. Then it came back right away. And I thought, well, that surgery was not fun. I don't want to do that again. And it's not really bothering me, so I'm going to let it go. So fast forward 5 years later, I go and get it checked again. They do a biopsy, and initially it was diagnosed as a basal cell carcinoma. I was shipped around in Austin to several different doctors, and finally I had a friend who said, you know what, just go to MD Anderson, go see what it really is. So I had everything sent down there. MD Anderson initially said basal cell. Once they got the slides and were able to look at the cancer under a microscope, they immediately called me and said, no, this is adenoid cystic. It's very rare. We need to have you in right away.
So let me pause there, because somebody may be getting a cancer diagnosis today.
Yes.
What was that like, and how did you mentally and emotionally process and handle it? And what tips would you give to somebody who is getting that diagnosis today?
So first of all, if you're getting that diagnosis today, just hold faith, take a moment and breathe. It is devastating. And I'm going to tear up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to like take you back to that place, but I think it's so important to address.
It is. It is a devastating diagnosis, but realize that you'll take it one day at a time. And everyone will ask you, well, how did you do that? How did you do that? No one has a choice but to do it. No one wants to be in that situation. But sometimes we get handed that, and sometimes it can be a defining moment for you. So take a deep breath, take a step back, Google, cry as you read it, because that's going to happen. It's like we're human and can't help but do that. We want to research and we want to know our chances, but know that those chances, no one can tell you when it's your time. So, I mean, I was looking at a 50% survival rate for the first 5 years, and
in your 30s.
In my 30s, I was 35, and here I am 11 years later. So advocate for your health, understand your disease, take time and have compassion for yourself and your family, and then build that support network around you. Treat it like a career. Go build that support network, go learn everything you can. And then just be patient with yourself, because there will be a lot of ups and downs. And there's a lot of anxiety for most cancers, it's a 5-year watch, right? So mine was actually a 15-year watch, and I was released in 2019 because the tests just kept coming back negative. There will be lots of times in, where you'll get a symptom, and every symptom is cancer. Every symptom will be cancer. Every symptom your children have will be cancer. But that will fade over time, and it does get better. And you can use it as a platform to launch into something better, which really, for me, I look at this as I went through 3 different periods. There was the defining period, the diminishing period, and the development period. So cancer defined me and my life and my family for at least 5 years, probably closer to 8. The feeling of being diminished, where I thought, oh boy, I can't even leave Texas. How am I ever going to move anywhere else? I am just glued to MD Anderson. There's no way I'm going to ever be able to travel or leave this state. I need these people to keep me alive. And also the diminishment of, what did I do to cause this? Was this my fault? Was this something I did? Did I not take care of myself the right way? And then the development process, where you enter a stage where you say, you know what, I'm stable, I'm okay. Or, you know what, I'm not stable, and I need to use this time right now to do what I want to do. So I have another friend who lives close by in Austin. She was also diagnosed with adenoid cystic carcinoma.
No way.
Yes, her path was much different than mine. We connected through a magazine. There was an article written about her and her family, and I had randomly opened to it one day. I was still ending my treatment and had seen this, and I thought, this is crazy. There's no way. This woman lives 5 miles away from me. I know this neighborhood. There's no way. And she was on, I think it was Instagram, and at the time I was not. So I had my personal trainer at the time reach out to her, and she responded immediately. And we met at the local Whole Foods. And initially, when she came up the stairs, she looked at me, started crying. And she said, I hate to ask you this, but was this your doctor at MD Anderson? And I said, yes. And she said, I know you. He's told me that he's cured you, and that you have 3 young children, and that he will do the same for me.
Oh, they give me chills.
And from then on, we have been meeting every week for lunch. Like I said, this is something that your path can go so many different ways. My cancer was a stage 2, and they stage these by, like a typical cancer, size and how many locations it's at in the body. Hers was a stage 4. Ooh. Hers was in her sinus cavity. Hers was also inoperable. So again, similar diagnosis, very different paths, but we also had the same treatment. My treatment, where I went through all of that planning with MD Anderson, all of the unknowns and the uncertainty, my treatment plan was then used within 3 years to treat her. And her treatment has resulted in a clean bill of health in her sinus cavity. She's had a couple recurrences, but
wow,
you never know.
My gosh. That reminds me of like when people get, something bad happens to us, we wonder, how can we ever find the silver lining? That's right. That is the question people have to wrestle with. But I mean, you have lived it, and you see a silver lining because it helps save somebody else's life.
Yes. And it brought me a very good friend, a friend that I never would have connected with. She has 2 daughters that are older. I have 3 sons that are younger. We have a lot of similarities in our life. The other thing that it brought was questions, right? Where did you live? Where did you grow up? What kind of industry did you work in? Can we solve this cancer thing on our own? What causes this adenoid cystic carcinoma? What do we have in common that we might be able to contribute to the greater good?
Yeah, because that is really interesting. Like, what causes it? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it stress? Is it lack of sleep? Does it, like, what are all the contributing factors? You know, is the sun, the radiation, and so forth?
Yes, so many factors to consider. And what we discovered was that we have nothing in common but this cancer.
Cancer is insidious, and you know, and it's a scary diagnosis because of the way that it operates in the body. It's not like a heart attack, and you know, you can go have a surgery and they know exactly what they're doing, they can fix it. But with cancer and the way that it spreads, like, so much of it is out of our control and we just don't fully understand it. So it's a scary diagnosis for sure.
It is. Yes, it is.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit, because you know, disease definitely has impacted your, you know, life trajectory and probably how you go about doing things in life and prioritizing things in life. So how I met you was at the, you know, Arnold Classic, and you had participated in a powerlifting event, and I actually met you and your coach, and I made the stereotypical mistake thinking he was the one competing. And
Yes,
you're like, no, I was. And you are like this smallest, petitest little person. And I'm like, wait, you're the power lifter? And so tell me a little bit about your powerlifting journey.
Yes. So initially it was spurred by the cancer diagnosis. And honestly, it took me quite some time to get to powerlifting. So I was diagnosed at 35. For the first 5 years, really just focused on getting through treatment, you know, and trying to be kind to myself. Asking for help. That was the biggest cancer lesson I got, was ask for help when you need it. I was not a person that was capable of doing that before this diagnosis. And then, so I kind of played around from 35 to 40, you know, I was in treatment. From 40 to 43, I was checking the box of exercise. I was kind of doing some group classes. I wasn't really pushing myself, but I felt like I was doing what I needed to do to keep myself healthy. And in reality, I was just kind of fooling myself. At 43, I finally had this realization that I was, at the time, I was not sleeping. So what they diagnosed me with was a kind of a post-traumatic stress disorder. Cancer treatment was finished. Everything was kind of settling down. And for me, when I was in treatment, it felt good because I was actively doing something to help myself. I knew, you know, there was a lot of anxiety around tests and treatments and all that kind of stuff, but it felt like I was doing something to take control. Well, when that all stopped and it started to be just a once a year scan, I kind of fell into this post-traumatic stress area where everything that I had been dealing with suddenly dawned on me, and I was able to handle those emotions and that stress while in treatment. And then it just exploded when treatment stopped. I wasn't sleeping. I was gaining weight. We're talking 5 nights of not sleeping, to the point where I was back at MD Anderson having tests, trying to figure out why I'm not sleeping. And I got so tired of it at 43, I decided I'm just going to go run. I don't care if I fall asleep in the middle of the road. I had tried NyQuil and everything, and I just wasn't sleeping. So I started to run. And I'm not a runner. I'm not athletic. So my history in growing up, I played some sports. I ran track, cross country, played some soccer, but I was not an athletic child. I was very much an academic. And so I started running, enjoyed it, but it was more of a run walk and wasn't 100% in it. And then, I think it was the summer of 2019, I had reached out to a friend of mine, again, not knowing who's going to bring you your future. This was a man that was working with my son at Brain Balance. My son has dyslexia and ADHD, and we were doing some therapy. And this kid, he was 27, 28 at the time. He said, I just graduated with an exercise science degree. I'd be happy to write you a program. So I said, sure, why not? I have no reason not to. So he wrote a program and I just committed myself to doing that for 3 months. I gave myself 3 months over the summer of 2019. And I thought, I'm just going to do this. Everything that he writes on the paper, I am doing. So I did it. And that consisted of running in the morning and lifting in the afternoon. It was the first time I had ever touched a dumbbell and the first time I've ever touched a barbell. So at 43, I started doing that training. It was very minimal. It was 5 days a week, but it wasn't taking long, 30 minutes a day. And then by 46, I think I was 45 when I first competed. And that was the first time I competed in Texas, and I set state and regional records and I didn't even know it. Cause they don't announce those, and I didn't have a coach. So he was writing this plan and I just went and did it on my own. Came back a couple weeks later from driving my kids around somewhere, and my husband said, "You set some state and regional records." And I was like, let me read those. You're probably wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome for your division based on your height and weight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So powerlifting is divided by age and weight class. So I compete in the masters division. Masters is divided by the decades. So 40 to 50 would be masters 1, 50 to 60 is masters 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in masters 1, and I compete in the 48 kilogram division, which is the 105 pound weight class.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Awesome. So you decided to compete and keep this going. Can you share a little bit about how and why you ended up at the Arnold Classic?
Yes. So I love setting the records. I won't lie. That's, I have a competitive nature.
Yes.
I did love setting the records, but for me, powerlifting was never about going to set the records. It was about just being healthy. It was about making myself as healthy as I could, knowing that I did everything I could to prevent another cancer diagnosis, and knowing that if I was handed that diagnosis again, that I could look at my husband and my children and say, I kept myself as healthy as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And also knowing that that was going to help me battle that disease if I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So it was never about the records, but I do enjoy competing and I enjoy the process. I think that's one of the most important things for people, is to enjoy the process that you're in every day,
mm-hmm.
because competitions come once every couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not enjoying what you're doing every day, then that's going to be hard. So I enjoy the process of lifting weights, and I ended up at the Arnold just through consistency. That's all it was. Consistency, dedication, grit, and just doing what's prescribed,
mm-hmm.
And holding yourself accountable. And that's one of the things I love about powerlifting, and the gym in general, is that it's not about the weight you're lifting. It's not about your weight. It's not about how you look. It's about everything else that the gym develops that you can then translate outside of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Those things like grit and commitment, dedication, accountability, feeling like you're doing something beneficial for yourself. That feels good. And it's the ultimate sign in my mind of self-respect. You cannot buy health, right? You can't inherit it. You have to work for it. And very often we're paying someone else in order to induce that pain on us.
Yes. And you're also pointing out that you don't have to have the talent. As long as you have the passion, the commitment, the heart, you know, people can outwork talent. I've seen it.
Yes.
So true. You've got the records, which I was going to ask you about. What is your record? Just for the audience. I know we don't want to focus so much on it, but I want people to realize you are lifting more than you weigh. So share a little bit about what the record is.
So I am very close to a couple records. So I held the American bench record in bench press. So at 100, this was when I was 103 pounds. I was 103.5 pounds and I bench pressed a 154.8 bench press. That was at the Arnold 2 years ago. One of my good friends came in and cut really hard and she stole that record from me, but I'm going to get it back. Which leads me to another point about the powerlifting community that I'll get to. My squat record is 225 pounds.
Wow.
And I am scheduled to take the American record in that, hopefully May 20th.
Wow, that's amazing.
Current record's 226 and I'm scheduled to squat a 230 pound. squat.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And then deadlift, I'm pretty weak in the deadlift. Most women are very strong, but this is not a strong lift of mine. I am about 25 pounds off of the American record. I need to deadlift a 300 pound, and currently I sit at 275.
Still impressive.
Yeah.
So you talked about cutting weight, which is, an interesting thing. I was there for the bodybuilding, competitions, and I understand that, how they have to cut weight and all the things that involved with that. But also in powerlifting, I didn't realize that you guys are also manipulating the calories in the water and trying to make weight, because you don't want to be competing in this class here. So talk a little bit about your cutting weight and stuff.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different philosophies around this. Some coaches are okay with doing weight cuts, and others want you to train at your weight the entire time. I have only had experiences in cutting, and now going into this next training block, my goal is going to be the opposite. I'm going to train at weight so I don't have to do that. So typically for myself, I will run around 112 to 115 pounds, and then I will drop about 10 pounds over the course of a week in order to reach that 105
That's
weight.
difficult for a woman. Men can drop pretty quickly. So, I mean, that's amazing that you can do that.
It is, but to all those ladies out there who worry about what that number says on the scale, I can tell you at any moment you are carrying about 8 to 10 pounds of water. Yeah. So every bit of that weight cut is water. It is completely just dehydrating yourself in order to make weight. And then we have other things that increase, water retention in our body. So about a week before I go to compete, I will start doing what's called a water push, which means drinking a gallon of water a day, in addition to my regular meals and liquids that I would drink. What that does is it super saturates the body. It gives this signal to the kidneys and the bladder to empty, right, repeatedly. So we're setting that precedent to super saturate the body, get it used to flushing. And then 2 days before that, I will cut the water. So the body is still expecting more water to come through, and it's still flushing itself out. So that's the beginning of the dehydration process. Right. And this is not something that's, once you're used to it, it's okay. I usually do the water push. I'll watch how much salt I'm taking in, and then I'll watch what supplements I'm taking as well, because some supplements do cause water retention. So I'll watch all of those things going in. So this would be like a Monday to Thursday type of deal. Friday morning, I would wake up, weigh myself, see where I'm at in the morning. For USAPL, we usually compete on a Saturday or Sunday. And they only allow a 2-hour prior weigh-in. Some federations will allow you to weigh in 24 hours before. For USAPL, they only allow 2 hours before.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So within that time frame, Friday morning, I have kind of a benchmark for where I will sit Saturday or Sunday. And then the night before competition, if I am overweight, I will just sit in a hot bathtub. That can be anywhere from 2 hours to I've done up to 4 hours. Wow. But doing it safely, 20 minutes in, 10 minutes out. And you can, I drop between 8 and 10 pounds overnight. I'll go in, do my weigh-in, and immediately after I step off that scale, I am drinking rehydration fluids to get my weight back up.
So kids, do not do this at home. This can be very dangerous. We're not giving out advice to do this. Leave it to the professionals that have studied the sport and know what they're doing. So
absolutely. You do need the advice of a coach in going into this. I have a coach advising me on how to do this, and I have someone watching me as well. So my husband's always around when I'm doing this. It can be dangerous, so we don't want to have people doing that. And having said that, now I am actually very excited to go into a training block where I'm at weight, because I won't have to do this.
Yes. So another thing,
fun.
Another thing that I really love about your story is that you are over 40 and you have gotten into this type of sport, a very challenging sport at that. And, as kids, we always learned that over 40 was over the hill. And I love that people who are redefining age and doing things over 40 into their 50s, into their elderly years. So let's talk a little bit about what your training routine's like to get you to this level.
Yes. So what I have done initially when I started, it was 5 days a week. Like I said, about 30 minutes a day. That was more a general fitness training. When I set the records and said, oh, I'm going to make this a thing, I need a coach. So I got a coach, and my training dropped from that 5 days a week to only 3, which was hard because I was kind of filling time and being in control with my training. So now I had a life outside of training, which was lovely and also scary at the same time. So my training is 3 days a week. I train Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. 2 of those days are formal with a coach. And then the third is on my own. Mm-hmm. My training generally runs a squat and a bench on the first day. And then we have probably 4 to 5 what we call accessory movements. Accessory movements are, think of bicep curls, tricep push downs, the things that isolate certain muscles in order to make our, what we call the main lifts, squat, bench, and deadlift, more effective and more powerful. So Tuesday, I would do a squat, a bench, and some accessories. Wednesday's a rest day. Thursday, I would do some deadlift and a narrow grip bench, which means just a tighter grip on the bar. Mm-hmm. And I would do more accessories. And then Saturday, I would do some variation of squat, like a front squat, and then some variation of bench, incline bench. So you'll notice in there that I squat maybe twice a week, deadlift only once a week, and I bench 3 times a week because bench is my powerhouse. So that is
what about cardio and aerobic activity?
Oh, I don't even give that credit. I should. I don't even think about it. So I work full time as a strength coach. So I am constantly loading and unloading bars. I mean, probably tens of thousands of pounds every week of loading and unloading bars. I also do make a conscious effort to do cardio. My cardio for a powerlifter is not long endurance running. It looks very different. So it's going to look more like it would for a football player. So I'm pushing heavy sleds just for 10 to 15 minutes, doing some sprints. I might do some walking on a treadmill at a pretty good incline, 12 to 15 degrees for 20 to 30 minutes. I will say that for cardio, you do not have to do very long distances and very long times. You can keep it short, you can keep it powerful, and still have it be really effective.
Okay. So you mentioned you're a strength coach. So not only do you compete, you have such a passion for this. You're like, wait a minute, I want to make this a career. So tell me a little bit about your strength coaching.
Well, I was actually working with my coach, and we have, as you're training, you have lots of conversations, especially with your coach. And we would just, for lack of a better term, nerd out on everything we could: lifting, nutrition, neuroscience, everything. I love this so much. I love talking about it. And I said to him one day, if I could just stay here in the gym, I would just stay here. I would just stay here all day. I would love to be here all day. And he said, well, why don't you? And my background is as a geologist. I'm not an exercise scientist. And I'm thinking, how do I make this change at 46?
Yep.
And he said, well, go get your certification. He said, you have enough knowledge now to help someone who's just starting this journey. Why not use that? So I went and got my certifications, and he said, we'll give you some clients. Let's see how things go. He's actually the owner of the gym that I train at. And things took off from there. Within 18 months, I had a full schedule. I was running 40 to 50 sessions a week. And now I have a small youth powerlifting team that I coach in conjunction with him. And I just love it. I love coaching, especially children, especially those children who feel like I'm not capable. And I love coaching older women who feel like they missed their chance, because that's how I felt. I felt like, I didn't really take care of myself when I should have. Maybe it's too late. I missed my chance at health. And that's completely untrue. Completely untrue. Like you said earlier about
over the hill,
feeling too old. Yeah, feeling too old, feeling over the hill. There's a quote that I love, and I don't know who this man is. I want to say he was a baseball player. His name's Satchel Paige.
Yes.
And the quote is, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? And
Yes.
I love that quote because we all have this image of by this age, you should do this. By this age, you should know this. By this age, you should have this figured out. At this age, you can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So untrue.
Mm-hmm.
Go and do it. Enjoy it. Express things through your body, especially through movement. And that looks different for everyone. I do some counseling at MD Anderson for people who are diagnosed with this disease, and some people who are diagnosed with just head and neck cancers because they are so rare. And one of the conversations I always have with people when they contact me is that just get exercise into your day every day. For you, that might look like just stepping out of bed. And that's okay. That's a start, right? That is your exercise for the day. Be compassionate with yourself and take it day by day, and you'll get there.
Definitely, definitely. So you've been on quite a journey for the last 10, 20 years with your disease, with your new career directions in strength training, with competing in your 40s. So let me just ask you, what have you personally learned about yourself that you were maybe surprised and maybe you could offer to others who might need a word of encouragement?
Oh boy, so much. But if I had to choose one thing, I would say be open to every opportunity.
That's a good one.
Do not dismiss anything for yourself as not possible. My journey 10 years ago, I thought I wasn't going to be here. My concern was not seeing my 1-year-old's first birthday. And now I feel like anything is possible. Anything's possible. Be open to the opportunities. Be open to the synchronicities that happen in your life, just like we met on the airplane.
Yes.
I think things happen for a reason, and I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't diagnosed with the cancer, right? Hindsight's always 2020. And we can always look back and find that thread in our life. When you're sitting in it, it's a lot more difficult. But trusting in the process, whatever that looks like for you, and just being open to the opportunities that are presented before you, you never know who's going to bring you your future.
Oh, that's really great advice. Because I know a lot of times people, they spiral down, they get depressed, they just give up.
Yes. You know, and that's okay for a moment. It's okay for a moment. Go there, be there for, I don't know, 24 hours. Let yourself be there. Let those emotions pass through and then pick yourself back up, because there's no other choice, right? You get to stay there and feel defined and diminished by this, or you can choose to develop yourself through it, right? And having been through this process, I can tell you it's so much more fun to go the development route. Yes.
There's much more hope and positivity, and and that's where I think you strengthen some of your character and some of your, I don't know, just overall being. So it's like a spiritual strengthening as well.
Yes, absolutely. And the gym for me is that perfect reflection.
Gym is church.
Yeah, it can be for some of us.
Yes. So we're getting here toward the end. Would you mind sharing with the audience what's next? And if you have any other final thoughts on today's topic?
Yes. So what's next? Crazy. So I just finished training with my coach that got me to this level. Hard decision. Had to leave that coach because what gets us one place does not necessarily.
The one that I met?
Yes. Does not necessarily get you to the next level. So, and everyone has their own level of experience, right? So I've actually hired an online coach. This is my first time doing online coaching, so it's a brand new experience for me. The goals going into my meet on May 20th, which is the USAPL Masters World Cup event in Arlington, Texas. Those goals are going to be to set the American record for squat at 230 pounds, set the American record for bench and take it back at 163 pounds, and then to deadlift as much as I possibly can. I'm hoping to get to that 300 pounds, but that's a lofty goal for the next 8 weeks or so. So those are the next goals. And I'm so sorry, my husband is talking very loudly.
No worries. I thought it was a dog barking in the
No,
background.
he's on a conference call as well. We're all home officing. So those are the next goals as far as my personal lifting goals. And then as far as for coaching overall, I would love to have a master's female bench press team. So if you're out there and you want to learn to bench press, ladies, I would love to do that. And then expanding my youth team. I have several youth that are going to nationals this year. So I'm really looking forward to coaching them. And then potentially I have considered opening my own gym. So we'll see where that goes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love all of your lofty goals. I mean, that's another great lesson is, make the goals, make some big goals in life, don't aim low. I think it's great that you're aiming high.
Yes, exactly. You have to.
Most definitely. So how can people get a hold of you?
I am not much of a social media person. I don't have a website. I probably should. The easiest way is just on Instagram. It's at tinylifter47. Everyone thinks that 47 is my age. It is actually my weight class. So tinylifter47, I try to post just kind of training videos, things that I find inspirational. And it's not just me. I post a lot about my clients as well. So if you're looking for motivation around getting started with fitness, getting started with your health, I address a wide variety of topics. I even have some video on there of my 66-year-old grandma that I train, and she's doing pull-ups. So you can do it.
Fantastic. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Eileen. I appreciate you coming on this channel, and it was my pleasure meeting you and being able to make this video happen. And you never know who it's going to help.
Yes. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it. And it was lovely meeting you.
You too. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to when the next video drops. Thanks for watching.